Welcome to the From Foster to Blank podcast, where we're highlighting former foster youth who have discovered their passion in life and creating their own purpose by redefining what success means to them. It's almost like a Where Are They Now podcast. Within every single story, we will see different people highlight what inspired them to change the direction of their life and how they achieve their own goals by redefining what success is. The best part is everyone is going to have a different definition of what success is, and we get to learn from them. The other neat part is that every single one of these people are going to highlight what they do, and they're going to give advice on how they got there. This is an educational podcast for people that are like you and me, foster care kids, but we're going to see it from a different lens of positivity. So here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the From Foster to Blank podcast. I have Joseph here, and we're going to start with him telling what he does, and we'll just dig in.
Hello, my name is Joseph Merchant. I'm 25 years old. I'm a former foster youth. So I currently am a philanthropist and humanitarian. I also do public speaking. I'm also a host, and I do anything that has to do with community outreach, giving back to the community, whether it's gift bags, book bags, back to school drives or food drives. And anything you can think of is just community outreach is what I do. And I'm proud to say that.
I love it. Okay. So you said you do backpacks, drives, food drives, and things like that with your community. Now, what are you still interning with?
No. So okay. I'm not interning with the Los Angeles Rams, but they do invite me back to a lot of the events that they host.
Okay.
I do have a documentary with Bank of America and the Los Angeles Rams. So that ties my name to those two amazing organizations. And so when they invite me out to these events, whether I host the event or I'm a part of the event, it's just amazing to be in that atmosphere and be able to be a part of the impactful change that so many organizations and so many individuals are pushing. So.
Okay, so we're going to pause there for a second because I think that is the coolest thing I've ever heard is you interned with the Rams.
Yes.
First off, how did you find out about that? How did you get that? And then talk a little bit about what you got to experience because that's like a not even once in a lifetime thing that's so rare what you got to do.
Yes. So with the internship, his name is Leo Hill. He's a job developer for a nonprofit, a Black-owned nonprofit in the Crenshaw district, right across the street from Leimert Park. So he is a job developer and he's like a big bro to me. So I was working as a soccer coach, part-time position. And so him and I built a relationship over time. And so he saw something in me that a lot of people don't. And so around 9:30 p.m. at night, he gave me a call and he was like, "Hey, do you have your resume?" And I'm like, "It's not ready, but I'll clean it up a little bit and send it to you in half an hour." So I cleaned up my resume and sent it to him within 20 minutes, around 9:50, 10 p.m. at night. And so 2 days later, I had a interview. He didn't tell me what it was about. He just said the Rams, blah, 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 something, something, something over the phone call. So 2 days later, I had an interview with the Los Angeles Rams. And so it was pretty intimidating because it was 3 people that interviewed me over Zoom. I never had that. It was always usually a one-on-one interview. And so 3 people that interviewed me. And so in the documentary and even after the interview, they told me that they made their decision right then and there, right before the interview ended, that they wanted me. So I was the first person to have this internship. And so I understood that having this internship was pretty big. So the dedication that I have is, it took me 4 hours and 30 minutes on the bus to get from where I was living at in Echo Park to get to the office that's in Agoura Hills. And it took me about 6 to 7 hours on the bus to get back home. So it took me about 10 to 12 hours daily public transportation to make it there and back home. And so, a lot of people, nobody would even take the bus, let alone take an hour on the bus. So I took, about 10 to 11 hours on the bus, So my second day on the bus back home, coming from my second day at work, I got robbed. So, obviously that was pretty discouraging, but, I continued. So this internship was very amazing because it was a 100-hour internship that extended from November up until February, up until Super Bowl. And so throughout the internship, I learned how to properly, write emails, properly format emails, just understand the corporate language, understand, professionalism, understand the workspace And so understand the difference between a job and a career. And, so I actually was able to I knew what I always wanted to do in my life, but I was able to hone in on this internship in what I specifically want to do because this
Yeah.
internship was community outreach, community affairs, and outreach position. And so this internship, I learned the importance of community. I learned, the
Mm,
importance of professionalism and the importance of being somebody and being a part of something bigger than myself. And so I
mm,
learned also to be a team player. And so there's this one event, or there's this one event. It was a 3 day middle school tour, and this middle school tours we hosted events, little activities. We hosted panel discussions with cheerleaders and professionals in their work, in the work career that's
mhm.
related to football. And so this one instance, her name is Alexandria. Amazing story. It's all about just paying it forward, and it's all about going the extra mile. So
Mm.
Alexandria came up to myself and my friend, the mascot Rampage. Can't say his name, but his name's Rampage. So it was me, Jonathan, which is my mentor slash big bro. He's the director of football affairs and social injustice. And so it was us three, Rampage, Jonathan, and myself. We were talking, and so Alexandria came up to us, and we were all dripped out in Rams gear. So she was like pointing out little stuff like, "Hey, I love your bracelet. Hey, I love your, Ram shoes and your jersey." And so it's like my grandpa's in the hospital and he loves the Rams and he's such a diehard fan. And so I'm like, we were doing small talk with her. And then Jonathan left, and then like a couple seconds later, I'm like, "Hey, Rampage, give me a second, I'll be back." So I went to Jonathan. I'm like, "Hey, can we make a little video?" Because she expressed that, her grandpa is in the hospital. Can we make a little video? Just to send them love and add fuel to the fighting fire, that
Mm.
he may have or may lack. And so he okayed it, and I'm like, all right, cool. So Rampage, myself, and Alexandria, we grabbed her phone and we're like, "Hey, Joseph here from the LA Rams. Rampage is here. We're here with your granddaughter." And so we just wanted to send positive love and just to let you know that we're here for you. And so
Mm.
reach out to us if you ever need anything. And then I put the camera on her, and she was saying, "Hey, Grandpa, I'm here with Rampage. Your favorite mascot, your favorite team."
Oh.
And then she started bawling, started
Oh.
crying like no other. And so I cut the video, and then all of us just embraced it. So it's all
Yeah.
about like we don't know what I didn't know. None of us knew what his condition was at the hospital. We
Right.
don't know. Like all we know is that this video could bring a smile to him. Who
Mm.
knows if this video actually saved him, or we don't know. But the thing is, it's going the extra mile. And so memories like that, I was able to experience and push forward and pass down to somebody that have
Mm.
needs it, because we all experience somebody who's in the hospital, a loved one or a friend. And so stuff like that I was able to experience, and experience my first gala. I spoke at my very first gala. It was out the blue. It was a gala with Salvation Army. No,
Mm.
excuse me. It was a gala with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and so the
Mm.
the Rams were being honored. And so there was somebody that was supposed to accept the award and give the award speech. It was two people. The first person, bailed. The cheerleader was the step in. She bailed. And so David, which was my colleague, but also just family and big bro, he was like, "Hey, do you want to, give the acceptance speech?" I'm like, "Yeah, heck yeah, I will." So it was like 2 minutes before we got the acceptance speech, or it was 2 minutes before we were going up on stage. And so he just offered it to me. I'm like, "All right, cool, I'll take it." It was like quick 30 seconds, the best speech ever. And so it was just out the blue, and it was just well spoken. And so, I do public speaking for a living, and people didn't know that. And so I was able
Mm.
to have my defining moment. I was able to show people what I'm about. And so
Mm.
I gave the best acceptance speech. And the next, like, after that, like a week later, like people were just calling the Rams, congratulating me, because they didn't know. Because I'm the youngest one there by like 30 years, because everybody's there, professionals. And so it was crazy. So I showed them what I was about, made a name for myself. So it was pretty dope. So experiences like that. So I went from my first gala to, five others. And so, the other five I got, the other five I was able to be awarded, so it was pretty dope. It was amazing. So I was able to be honored a couple of times after that. And so stuff like that, I was able to, experience and carry with myself to the day I go to my grave. So
Yeah. It's so unique because they also went to the Super Bowl that year.
yeah,
But it's not just like that. Like I see you glowing and I'm just like, let's pause on this because it like I could tell that that was something that you were like, that means so much to you. And that's not an experience a lot of people get. And you played football in high school, right?
yes, yes,
So for that is like the high school football player's dream to be like, one day I'm going to go to the Super Bowl. And not a lot of people get to see that, where it's just that to me, I'm all like, dang, that had to have been like the moment which like, boom. But it also opened other doors for you. And I think it's interesting that you said something that they taught you how to communicate in email. That's not something we get to learn just by ourselves outside of a job. And there is a difference. I work with a lot of students who are like, oh, if I write in all caps, it's totally fine. And I'm like, no, that's yelling. You're
yeah,
yelling at me in an email. And some people are like, I know that I am. That's why I did it. And others are like, oh, I had no idea. But you don't get to learn a lot of this stuff as someone who is in foster care. But you also said something, you are dedicated. You are a dedicated person. You got this opportunity, you showed up. And it took you 7 hours to get from this place back home.
yeah,
Most people would have been like, I'm tapped out, like it's not worth it. But you were like, there's this, I got to do this. And I'm a dedicated person. Like you say yes to something, you're going to show up. And that's why people started asking you to do other things. And I think that to me is something that's very difficult for people to learn is dedication. We honestly, like, I say yes to something, I might not follow through. Like that's not something that you live by. You're like, I say yes to something, I'm there at all costs, even to the cost of getting mugged and still showing up. And I'm sorry that that happened. That sucks. People that don't know, like Los Angeles is that way a lot. Like
yeah.
happens all the time, but it's not good. And it sucks when it happens to you. And I'm sorry that you went through that. That like just go find that guy and beat him up.
It's all
I'm not
good.
going to, but it's hard because but I think we need to really know that sometimes dedication means like losing it all and still showing up and saying, this is still what I have today, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Like I've lost it all, but I'm still going to show up and be a man of my word. And that's not what a lot of people in general, in our general population will do. They'll just like, oh, I'll get something next time. But because you showed up, you got this unique opportunity. And then it led to other opportunities. Now you say you keynote speak too.
Yeah.
So with the keynote speaking, how do you feel about doing those things? How do you like, I know what I feel, but how do you feel about doing those things?
I'll get to that right now, but like you mentioned a couple things I do want to tap into
Yeah.
before I get to the part. So like with Super Bowl, it was like earned for sure. It was like nothing given. Nothing that I
Mhm.
have now is everything I have now is not given. It's all earned.
Absolutely.
So with the Super Bowl, it was a journey because it's like I was the first like this whole internship partnership with the LA Rams, Brotherhood Crusade, Bank of America, and how higher LA's youth they all, decided to partner up and make this internship possible. And so
Mhm.
with this internship, I was the first person. And so being the first person, I understood the severity of it. And so, LA Rams and Bank of America, they didn't know who I was. They didn't know. They just thought, oh, there's gonna be just a regular youth and he was gonna come in and do his internship and come and
Mm.
leave. They didn't understand who I was. So the
Yeah.
thing is that's important because the thing is with that Super Bowl journey, we didn't know we were gonna make it a Super Bowl. We didn't even know if we were gonna win. And so the thing
Mhm.
is being able to be the first person in internship, being able, I think it was like a month later, that's when everybody found out that I would take public transportation. And Erica, which is the
Mhm.
receptionist lady, amazing lady, she actually one day I came one day I came to work. And so when I walked in, I was sweaty. And she was like, "Oh my God, like, are you okay?" Because it was hot, And so she was like,
Um,
"Leave your book back there, go wash up and come back and get your stuff." And then when I came back, she was like, "Why were you all sweaty?" I'm like, I told her for the first time. I told anybody when I
mm,
told her, I'm like, well, it takes me about like 4 hours and 30 minutes plus the 5 hours,
mm,
to get here. And so she's like, wow. And she was like, all right, cool. And then she, let me hang out in the lobby for like 10, 15 minutes to rest. And then I went back to work. And then like, over time, people would start asking me my name, or like not my name, but like asking, like poking at my story, like who am I and stuff, poking little intricate questions I picked up and understanding what they're
Ah,
trying to get at. And so later down the line, we got closer to Super Bowl, or we got closer to playoffs, and then so as we got closer to the playoffs, that's when people started to, um, you know, film me and let me know like, hey, we want to film a documentary on you, and just do a
mm,
testimony and stuff. And so little overtime events, overtime people just started to be invested in me and invested in who I was and
yeah.
the story. And so when Super Bowl came, like it was Super Bowl week, and so that Monday, David, they all know, like they if they ask me if they need help, like they know I'm gonna be there. They know I'm gonna show up. No questions
Yeah.
asked. And so David, it was funny. It was funny because David asked me like, "Hey, can you come on Monday to help out?" And I'm like, "All right, sure." I came Monday, and I was expected to help out and support. And and so they're like, "Well, when we got there, when I got to the office, we took two charter buses to the high school that we were hosting the Super Bowl week launch." And so that when we got there, David was like, "Oh, like in an hour or so, we're just gonna hang out for an hour or so, and then we're gonna go back to the stage and help out." And
Mhm.
so from there, David was like, "Oh, we're gonna get the little t-shirt rockets, and we're gonna just shoot them." I'm like, "Well, I don't need one. I got a cannon right here, I can, because I play baseball and I was pitcher." And so it was funny. And so we went to the backstage. They gave me a bag of t-shirts, and then I was throwing the shirts and whatnot. And so it was pretty fun. Just like the last like two t-shirts, I was pointing at people like, "Who wants it? Who wants it?" And I just launched it. The last one, I just launched as far as I could. So it was fun. And so when I came back, I was passing the side of the stage.
Yeah.
David was like, "Stay right here, stay right here." And then the lady that was hosting, or like the lady, she was like the producer that like runs the stuff. She was like, "Stay right here." And this was like, in like 10 seconds, you're gonna go up on stage. I'm like, "All right, cool." I'm out of breath, but I'm expecting to speak. I'm ready to speak because I don't know what the heck is going on. Next thing you know, two amazing women came up to me because they're hosting the events. They're actually hosts. And so they're like, "Look, this is an amazing young man." They played a snippet of my documentary on the two big LED screens, and it was amazing. They're like, "Well, we're gonna play, or we're gonna award you two Super Bowl tickets," and it was just dope. I just started bawling on the stage. It was just dope. And
Um,
so when I got off stage, like my whole colleagues, everybody just embraced me and stuff. And so it was pretty dope because if I earned it, like
mhm.
for lack of better words, I fucking earned it, to
Yeah,
keep it real with you. And so, and
absolutely.
I understand, like, not many people, like, there's football players in the NFL that have 12, 15, even like 19-year careers, or even 2, 3 years
Right.
in the NFL that worked their whole lives, the whole freaking lives to get to Super Bowl, and they never
Yes.
made it, or even, so, and it's like, not to hate on them or anything, because like, they're badass. Those are badass athletes that put their lives on the line daily, weekly, Sunday after Sunday, Thursday after Thursday to, play in the NFL. And so they never made it, but I made it. And so here's a quick little fact. I even fact checked it and I did my research. Only two people in the NFL history has ever been a former foster youth and Super Bowl world champion. Michael Orr
Mhm.
and myself. And it's like it's pretty crazy because saying like being a Super Bowl 56 world champion is forever tied to my name. Forever. Like literally forever. And so even though I didn't play enough, even though, and people misconstrue this, you don't have to be a player to actually
Yes.
impact the Super Bowl. It's also the corporate workers, the front office workers that actually play a big role in the journey to get into the playoffs
Yeah.
and into the Super Bowl. And so from there, it was just amazing. So I carry that with myself for the rest of my life. And so when it comes to dedication and ambition, it's like honestly, like my whole life, it's been fucking hard, for
Yeah.
lack of better words. But honestly, it's like having this like dedication and ambition. It's like I don't know where it comes from. It's just natural. It's just naturally in me, And so and so that leads into being a keynote speaker. And so being a keynote speaker, being just somebody that shares my story. The thing about me when I speak and I do public speaking or host events, I don't have a script. I don't write anything down. I don't do any of that. And I always speak from my heart, and I'm like, and this is not being cocky or anything. This is facts. Like I'm more versatile. I'm more impactful than 80% of all keynote speakers there is today. The reason why is because I'm only 25. Most keynote speakers become keynote speakers when they're like in their 30s or 40s, you know.
Mhm.
And so I'm only 25, and the foster youth that I speak with, you know, they're 19, 17, and I'm not even that older than them. And so I have this connection, I have this common ground. And the thing is, I have this experience, you know,
Mhm.
and a lot of keynote speakers have very little to none experience. And the thing is, I always use this example. Back in foster care, in these group home placements I lived in, they would bring keynote speakers like once a month.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the youth today, even when I was with foster youth, we all had this nasty attitude where going to these events were mandatory. You know, we'd rather, be somewhere else. And
Right.
so we would have this nasty attitude. We would be rowdy, loud, on our phones or whatever, joking with each other instead of paying attention. And so that would add pressure to the keynote speakers that just the keynote speakers didn't know how to connect with it. And
Oh
so
yeah. No,
and,
absolutely.
and so the thing is, there's this like after like five keynote speakers came by, there's the sixth one. The sixth one I actually made a connection with. Like I don't have foster parents, like I don't have parents, I don't have mentors or anything. And so this one person I connected with, and it's very vital for the people that listen, especially the people that are listening. Check this out. The thing is, when you're a keynote speaker and when you go to these events and you're trying to find some type of common ground, you have to understand that they're not gonna give a fuck about you. They're not gonna pay attention to you. The thing is, you have to assert not only your dominance, but you have to assert for them. You have to make sure that they understand who you are, and how to do that is to find a piece of common ground. The thing
Mhm.
is, I made this connection with this one guy because I'm a rape victim and he was a rape victim. All the other guys in my cottage, that's what we called it in our cottage. Uh, None of them been through what I've been through and what he's been through. So I found that one common ground. And so he gave me his number, and so he left. I called him a couple times when I needed him, never answered, never came back. And the thing is, being there matters. And so the thing is, every event that I go to, and the majority of the events I speak at are lately have been, with foster youth. And
Mhm.
so I always make sure that I give them my personal cell phone number, and I make it very clear. And it's a saying, you beat a dead horse. I beat a dead horse, meaning I repeat to them over and over throughout the day that you can call me when you need me. And I would let
Mhm.
them know, like, I remember my social worker's office hours from Monday to Thursday, and the weekend, that's when we would get in fights. That's when the trouble would actually happen. And
Yep.
the fights, everything usually would happen because we're bored. We don't have nothing else to do. And
Right.
so I knew I couldn't call her because she wouldn't even answer. And so there was no point of even trying to call her. And so the thing is, I try to do my best to come back to these uh, venues or group homes on a consistent basis. I tap in with them, I check in with them, give them little incentives to work towards, AWOL, get a gift card or something, And so the thing is, you have to be persistent, you have to be there, you have to be present. And that's the most important thing is when you're
Yeah.
present, you build that connection over time. You're not going to build the thing about me that a lot of people don't understand is I build a connection off the rip because I understand what type of common grounds that there is. Like
Yeah.
for example, when I was 14 years old, I'm black and white, but I was dating this, white girl back in high school in San Dimas High School that, her parents were white, obviously, but they all like I'm white, I'm half white. Nobody's gonna see that, They're gonna
Mhm.
see a black man, because my genes took over. The thing is, him and I, he was racist, and so she tried to bring me over to dinner one time, to try to, get to know her pops and her pops to get to know me to try to break that. And so, he was, pestering me all these microaggressions throughout the whole night. And towards the end of the night, we found out that, we experienced, abuse. And so we have that little common ground. And so that common ground actually was the spark and the connection that we made. And so when you find that piece of common ground, whether it's big common ground or small or medium, whatever it is, you want to hone in on that common ground and focusing on that and let it grow. You want that to be the key focal point into any type of relationship you make with a youth or an audience. I spoke at galas, and these galas, I'm only like 24, 25. I have $0 in my pocket, and all these professionals, got careers, got money in their pocket, but I know how to make a connection with them, and so, I'm versatile. And so, that's one of the reasons why I believe I will win, my presidential election when I decide to run in 2036, because making a connection, I speak Spanish, I speak Samoan, Spanish, I believe is the second most, I believe it's the second most spoken language either in the world or in America. It's not a fact. I know it's very highly spoken in LA for sure.
Yeah.
And so, being able to make that connection with people, who predominantly speak Spanish, or, people from the Latin, community. And so,
Mm.
where, so stuff like that is where, I excel at. And
Yeah,
so, I'm tuned into the culture, a lot of,
absolutely.
the culture in this era for sure. So,
You're
that's where a lot of keynote speakers lie. So,
absolutely, and I agree with that. Because so first you said something that I want to point out, because you said something that you said everything you have earned. 100%. No one has handed you anything. I've always been in conversation with people and they're like, it just fell in my lap. And I'm like, no. Like, you have had to work for everything. And that is something that it didn't just happen for you. Like, it is an effort of your dedication and your work. But then you also said credibility. You've built your credibility, not just amongst the internship or just anything above the keynote speaking. And that is something that when you come in, you're not just like, listen to me because this is my name. Like, no one knows you when you walk in, and you have to build that credibility. And part of that is sharing your story. I know we all share our story a little different. But you're right. Like, you can tell when you're losing the audience. And I think there's a lot of people who show up to keynote speaking like, do you know who I am? Versus saying, I'm going to read the room and I'm going to show you who I am. Not because I think I'm better than you, but because I've been where you've been. And that is where
exactly.
you're focused on relationships, not focused on people knowing who you are. Like, it's just that, but like, I see it in the movie sometimes where they're like, do you know who I am? And I'm like, no, nobody knows who you are when we walk in these rooms, but we want to leave an impression that's not just in the keynote speaking. And you're right. I have heard that same thing within some of the rooms I've been having the opportunity to be in. And I don't come in like suit and tie, like, ever. I come in just in casual clothing because it makes me more approachable for people who are like us. And I stand in the back of the room with people. I talk to people. I don't say, hey, this is who I am. Like, I just come and I show up because the person putting on the event knows who I am, but everyone else doesn't. So then I come and I talk, and then it's the follow-up after that you're doing that's so unique. Because you said that no one would, they say, here, call me, text me, and then they'd never answer. It's like, why did you give out your phone number if you weren't going to answer? Like, why? What's the point of handing it out if you're not going to answer and respond? So if you're listening as a keynote speaker, don't give out your number unless you're going to respond. But it means, like, that's hurtful for someone that's in our situation, because it's like, I'm looking to reach out to someone I connected with, and they're basically reminding us, like, we're not good enough for them to say, hey, Joseph, what's going on? Like, you're calling, hey, you're texting, how can I help you? Like, but then what it does, can you explain the long-term hurt that it does when someone does something like that from your
Yeah.
perspective?
Yeah. So I'll get into that right now. You said about making an impact, and a lot of people have this misconception where they go into these rooms and they think that their credibility or their reputation precedes them. And that's the thing where it's like you come off cocky. And so you can like a lot of people who get hired to be a keynote speaker, they go into these rooms thinking that. And so with me, like, I never do. Like, even though I have a huge reputation, I never go into these rooms thinking that. And so I never let any of the stuff that I go through, blow my head up too big. Obviously I have moments where I deserve to not be humble and brag, but I don't do that for a long time. And so when I go into these rooms, like, when I get hired or booked to speak at galas or events, I always have to have a section, a time slot to share my story.
Mhm.
And so always, and that's always gonna have to happen. And so I introduce myself, I share my story, and then I get down to what I'm here for. And
Mhm.
so after every event, I always have to let people know because I made my decision that I want to run for president of the United States of America as soon as I turn 25. I mean, 35, excuse me, because that's the minimum age requirement. And so
Mhm.
I passed all other requirements except that, not yet. I have 10 years to
Yeah.
go.
Come
And so
on.
the, and so the thing is, for this entire 10 years, it's all about building my reputation. It's all about making a name for myself. But it's mainly about making a connection with communities, making a connection with the world, you know?
Absolutely.
And so making that connection, I'm able to make, myself accessible, make myself known.
Mhm.
And so making myself available and accessible is the key thing that a lot of people, lack, because their priorities or what they have going on is bigger than making a connection with the community. And so the
Mhm.
thing is, yeah, to an extent it is, but it really isn't at the same time. And so when I attend these events, I always have to let people know what
Yeah,
I'm going to do.
absolutely.
And so that helps me, but also helps them because when I make that connection, that key vital connection, and when they find out that I run for president of the United States of America in 10 years from now, we're able to understand our struggles. We're able to understand what I need and what they need from each other. And so from there, I'm able to understand. I'm able to understand what we all need, and I'm able to advocate. So I've
Mhm.
been blessed, and I've been, for whatever reason, I've been blessed to have this type of platform and have this type of journey, and been selected the internship. And so with the internship and the documentaries, most people would have got the documentary and share it with a couple of their friends, and that's it. No, I pushed the hell out of that documentary. I
Good.
pushed the hell out of it, and I'm still doing that till this day. And so the thing is from that, and so when being a keynote speaker and, coming across that one person, that let me down, and I try to connect with them, that long term effect, you nobody talks to you more in a day than yourself. So what are you telling yourself? Are you telling
Mhm.
yourself you're ugly, you're worthless, or are you telling yourself you're beautiful, you're handsome, and you're strong and educated? What are you talking to yourself about? And so that part that that game,
Yep.
that is some game. That's a gem I just passed to you. The thing is, I went through a lot of that, during that time. I
Mhm.
felt neglected. And so when you feel neglected, you kind of talk to yourself and you feel worthless, and you kind of you beat yourself down. And so,
Right.
over that time, I went through that, and so the reason, and you also talked about, sharing my story, and not a lot of people are open to be vulnerable and stuff. The thing is, sharing my story and being as vulnerable as I am, not a lot of people do that. And so that's one of the many things that set me aside from other keynote speakers. And that also just sets me aside. And that is also I'm able to make more connections than I would have been if I wasn't as vulnerable as I am. And
Mhm.
so, sharing, talking about, being with, an opposite, being with somebody that is opposite sex and opposite, or even same sex, but opposite race, but has racist parents, you kind of feel that. You make that connection with so many other people. Or also, being a rape victim, you're able to make connections with that. Or being, I was locked in the closet with, five other group home, or not group home, foster parents. All of them would lock me in the closet, after school, during the weekend, during the whole weekend, or even after school, fed bread and water, bread soaked in a Ziploc bag. Here's your dinner,
Mhm.
here's your breakfast, here's your lunch, all that. So other people have experienced that, being, sexually abused or even physically abused by a football coach or a baseball coach, other, young boys or young men, experiencing that today or years ago, so many stuff. You can make that common ground, that connection.
Absolutely.
All 12 years of my education, I was a special ed. Some other people make that connection, or even being a foster youth like myself, so, making that connection. And
Yeah.
so all that plays a part into finding somebody that I did or many other people have experienced or are currently experiencing right now. You know, all the shit that you've been through, you know, all plays a part into making that connection with somebody or have made that connection. And during that long period of time, you know, you beat yourself up, you know, and so you
Mhm.
start to act out, you know. And so when you start to act out, I used to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was a kid. I grew out of that, but
Mm.
the thing is from there, you know, that played a part, you know, during that, you know, long term effect, you know. And I always tell the youth today, even today, you know, I used to punch the wall, and the wall always won.
Mm.
You know, broken knuckles, broken fingers, all that, and so it beats you up. You know, you beat yourself up, and it
Absolutely.
just hurts. You know, you feel neglected, you feel worthless, and so you know, you have to go through that by yourself. And so going through that by yourself, you have to make it mandatory to overcome that battle or any other battles.
Absolutely. So there's two things I want to point out real quick because you said the thought process is you start to spiral. And according to Dr. Fred Luskin at Stanford University, he states that we have a potential to have over 60,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are repetitive. That's a lot of things to think through. But then you also bring up the issue of like over medication or over diagnosing, like what maybe the bipolarness that you did have was because of the situations that you were in. But they say, according to nursingclio.org, and you can Google this, everyone can just start looking into it. 1 in 3 foster children who take medications do not receive a treatment plan or monitoring, which leads to the overprescription of foster youth and incorrect diagnoses. And that just like makes you, like you said, you were like, I felt like this, I felt like that. And this, like, we spiral back to all of the other abuse that we've gone through. But again, it's like, why hand out your number if you're not going to answer? So keynote speakers, don't do stuff like that. If you don't have a good intention of sharing your contact info, just don't do it. But also, like, you keep saying the same thing, like, I want to build relationships with people so they know that they're not alone. And that is how you do stand out in what you do. Like, you're very honest with how life has sucked, but it's not, you're not doing it to be like, look at me, someone comfort me. You're just like, this is the reality of what
Yeah.
someone like me has gone through. And that does make people connect with you in such a better way than just being like, nope. And let me back and say this. I want to backtrack a little bit. You don't have to share your story. That's not what you're saying. But what you're saying is there is a benefit of being vulnerable with people. And there are times, like, I know I do this. I'll share parts of my story and I don't ever go into the detail of like every day it was like this and then this and then all that detail, because there are a lot of people in the room who are too close to their trauma and it might make them spiral, but I'm still vulnerable with them. And that does create a connection. But then my follow-up question is, are you creating, not just you, but anyone listening, are you creating space afterwards to stand back and be with someone who wants to process that? And that's a hard thing to do. And that's what you're creating with saying, hey, if you need a friend, if you need someone to call, here's my number. Here you can come and talk. I'm a safe place for you to connect with on this. And I want to be here for you. And that I don't see a lot of keynote speakers do. They get up, they leave, they don't connect well. They do, pictures
Get
and
the check.
stuff. And then they leave, but they don't stay. And I always build that into my time frame that I will stay and wait till the last person leaves the room. And that is intentional because I'm not there for people to be like, oh my God, good job. I'm there for the person who was like me, who waited for the last opportunity to step forward and say like, hey, I connected with you. Your story was like mine. But I love that you said that, because I think that needs to be done better. And that's a good challenge for us to be like, if you're speaking in any platform, be mindful with how you say something and then the follow-up after. Okay, so we're going to go to the second question. How do you define success?
Man. Honestly, what I've done, you know, what's the stat? I think it's 2 and 3 former foster youth either end up dead, homeless, or in jail within the first year that they age out. You know,
90%.
I yeah, I define that as success. You know, like you die either by drugs or gang violence, or
Mhm.
and so I meant to like I have survivor's guilt. You know, I suffer from survivor's guilt a lot of the time because it's because of that fact, but also because of what I've been able to achieve. And so the thing is, a lot of foster from the foster youth, I've been through homelessness so many times, and so I define success by having my apartment. It's a studio apartment right now. It's a shared living apartment, but I define that as success. I define success
Yeah.
by getting my internship because having an internship is important. A lot of people, look down on internships, but internships really are impactful and important to have on your belt, under your belt, but also in your resume. And so it's also, I also define success by, being, the good young man that I am. I've been through hell and back,
Mm,
I went through juvenile hall twice, a year apiece. One because I was under academic probation because I went did school a lot, and then the second one was because of assault with the assault with a deadly weapon, but it wasn't that. It was because I have mixed martial arts background. Some dude threw a skateboard at me. I blocked it with my forearm, and I came with the right hook at the same time. A lot of people, saw me hit him with a skateboard, but it wasn't. And so the thing is, I define success by I got that experience because I'm a good young man, but also
mhm.
because I was able to, let them know like, hey, like, I'm a good kid and give me an opportunity. I'm able to define success by not letting me being a rape victim, a lot of rape victims become a rapist or become, abusive, and so I'm not that. And so I define success by not becoming, I define success by not becoming a product of my environment, the product of, my community. I've never done drugs or alcohol. I define success by that. You know what I'm saying? And so being a college student, I define success by that because being a college student, having those conversations aren't in our lives, and so especially a lot of foster youth, we don't think about going to college,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
not a lot of people know this, but I'm a former state representative. I at 2020 and during the pandemic, I had my 1 year term as a state representative for the Student Senate for California Community Colleges. I
Mm,
represented and oversaw all 112, I believe, community colleges in the state of California. As a former foster youth, as a black man, as somebody who is a rape victim, as somebody who's been through hell and back. I define success as
right.
that because a lot of people don't have that experiences. And so I was able to experience that term and it was amazing. I was able to get a $30,000 grant and split that into a $100 food for less gift cards and distributed it into 12 community colleges.
Mm,
And one of the 12 was at my school. And so, success, I'm able to define success like that. And so but to answer your question fully 100% straightforward, I define success by being a Super Bowl 56 world champion. That's my greatest achievement ever. I have, you know, I, I've, I'm up there with Tom Brady. I'm up there with so many other Super Bowl world champions that have been able to hold the Lombardi trophy, and that's something that is my greatest achievement. And so I'm able to define that by looking back at the journey that took me to get there. Like 10
absolutely.
to 12 hours on public transportation, being mugged. It's not even just the thing is 4 hours and 30 minutes to get to the office and 6, 7 hours to get from the office back home. It's just,
Right.
I haven't even spoken about taking public transportation to the events. I work
Mm,
community affairs, going to schools, going to these locations and venues, taking, public transportation to my friend's gala, stuff
yeah.
like that, and I don't even want to I don't like looking back at that, those journeys, those little stuff is what I look at and I'm able to define my success and the success I've had.
Absolutely. So I want to clear something up just because I don't want someone listening to misunderstand. So 90% of foster youth have either been homeless, on drugs, in jail. Like it's there's another statistic, drugs, yeah, being in a gang, homeless, and all of that stuff, where it's like something bad has happened. 90% of them. Now, with rape, it's not a high percentage that they go and become rapists, but it is a high percentage that they're re-raped again or sexually abused again. It's a high percentage of rape victims being a victim again. And there is a stigma, and the reason why I want to pause here for a second is that there is a stigma that because you have been sexually abused, you will be a sexual abuser, which is not true. But they have found that most rapists have been sexually abused. So look that statistic up for listeners, just because I think that with foster care, when we have opened up on our stories, a lot of people go, oh, you're going to abuse. You're going to be an abuser. It doesn't matter what it is. Like they'll just label that as it. And it's not true. We have a higher percentage of actually being re-abused by someone else or being in a domestic violence relationship. So this is where our community needs to step in and say, let me teach you the green flags, the good flags of what a healthy relationship looks like. Instead of, just letting you go into these relationships, of kind of coming and saying, like, let me be your friend and show you what healthy relationships look like. But also too, within foster care, there is a possibility of having our own kids go back into the system because we don't know how to parent. And that's something that a lot of foster care kids are like, it ends with me. It's not generational. It's not going to be generational because we want to get out of this. And so with all the things that you're doing, you're coming in and you're like, I'm defining my success as being a hard worker, being someone who comes in and fights to be in these areas and be at this table. And it means there's a dedication, but I'm also fighting for people to understand what it's really like for someone like me who has gone through this. And people don't realize that. A lot of people just think that, sexual abuse doesn't happen outside of parents, and like, it's not true. It, like
It happens everywhere. It
Yeah.
can happen anywhere. Like the thing is with that, like I'm glad that like you're able to bring up those facts and just make it clear, because clear communication is important. The thing is like a lot of people get that misconception where it's like, oh, you're abused and you have a high chance of becoming an abuser. No, you don't. Like not for the majority of individuals, you don't. And so the thing is, I was able to, I look at the thing is, I get a lot of like growing up. I had to raise myself, and so getting a lot of like, how should I say? What's the thing? The thing is, there's positive outlets, and so you have to find those positive outlets. And I was able to overcome. I was able to deal with, the consequences of being, raped and sexually abused and physically abused. Like I went through hell and back with those stuff. But the thing is, I was able to find positive outlets to make sure that I don't become what my offenders are.
Absolutely.
And so how I guaranteed my success into becoming a good young man is focus on sports, focus on baseball, football, basketball, and mixed martial arts. Those are the sports I've done my whole life. And extreme sports, I was able to use those sports as positive outlets and make sure that, I gain, a sense of, community and a sense of clarity and to be able to clear my mind with those sports. And so that's how, a lot of people don't, and like a lot of people who become sexually abused at a young age, they don't open up until they're in their 20s. And so that's the thing. Like I didn't open up until I was like not like 18, 19, but I was suffering alone and in silence, but to an extent. And the reason why I say to an extent is because I found sport. And sports found me. And so that was just a tip to people who, don't speak about, their past, find a positive outlet. My positive outlet right now is comic books. I love comic books. And so, comic books, movies. And so, with that, it's just, it's my safe haven.
I like that you said, like, because you found so much success in that, like you're saying, like, okay, I went out and found it, but it also found me. And even though you're not playing football currently, you're like, oh, I found comic books. I love it. It's great. And so
Exactly.
you're always finding something that keeps you pushing yourself, and you're not done. Like I know that you're still taking a lot of transportation to get to where you want, but you also said you have your own apartment, you're getting ready to move in. That's a huge win.
Yeah,
Huge
and I
win.
have my car. I got my first car last month. So
Oh, that's right. You got a car and now it's like, heck yeah. But you are doing these, you are finding your successes differently and defining them as different, because then you get to celebrate along the way. But it's like, you didn't just sit there and say, well, this is my life. Like, screw it. You're just like, nope, we're going to go a different route. We're going to redefine success and I'm going to find it for myself. But you have built this, and I'm freaking proud of you.
thank you.
Because that stuff is not easy. Like, I don't think we could ever put into words the weight of what you've gone through and how that should have left you on the floor. Like, you went, I'm going, in spite of all the things that have been thrown at me, I'm still going to find ways forward. And
Um,
that is a huge deal. Like, there's no words that can describe that weight of what you've been through.
Yeah, for sure. You know, a lot of people don't give me credit. Like, and the thing is, I'm not gonna say. Well, I'm gonna say this, but don't get it misconstrued. I'm not like minimizing anybody's story or anything like that. But the thing is, like, people go through one little hiccup and they want to give up. You know, one little argument with their mama or their daddy and they want to give up. Or like
They stub
little
their
stuff like
toe
that.
and we're like,
Like little stuff like that. Like, don't get me wrong, like it hurts. Like everybody goes through something, and they could only take so much. Like, I understand that, but the thing is, a lot of people don't give me enough credit. Like, bro, like at 32 foster homes, 5 group homes. I lived in Skid Row for about a month and a half to 2 months at the age of 13. You know, I ran away from that former foster homes or foster parents because they were abusing me. They would pin me down. The foster dad would pin me down. The foster mother would grab a butter knife, heat it up in the stove, and put it against my thigh and watch me cry and scream while they're laughing in my face. I ran away. You know, I lived in Skid Row for about a month and a half to 2 months. You know, shit like that is what I've been through. And it's like people don't give me enough credit. Like, I've been through hell and back. I could have committed. Like, the thing is, I could have, ended my life. I could have, been homeless right now. I could have given up, fallen victim to drugs, fallen victim to gangbanging, fallen
yeah.
victim to alcohol. Like, I could have gone through all that. Like, don't get me wrong, the people that are going through that, my heart is with them, and I try to support people who go through that. But the thing is, I could have gone through that, and I didn't. And so
Oh,
it's easy. It's easier to give up, and it's twice as harder to push forward. And so the thing is,
right.
I continue to push forward because I understand, like, the thing is, I have an opportunity to, be somebody that other kids or other people look up to. And so there's grown men that look up to me. And so it's as pretty dope, as weird as it can get, sometimes it's pretty dope. And so the thing is, little stuff like that is what motivates me. And so
Yeah.
being at these galas and these rooms, being able to, host have my GoFundMe up and have people support, like, stuff
Mm.
like that is, I didn't expect that, but I got that, and it's pushing me to, not only have success in getting my apartment and everything, but also being, a good person. And so,
Yeah.
like, I raised myself. And so the thing is, when I say I raised myself, I raised myself by learning how to say yes, man, no, sir, yes, sir. Like, every time I go to a friend's house, and this is just natural. Every time I go to a friend's house, I ask, hey, or anybody's house, hey, do you need me to? I read the room for a quick second. I'm like, hey, do you need me to take my shoes off? Or, hey, do you want me to take the trash off for you, or anything like that? And
Mm.
so, I always say yes, ma'am, and people think I'm from the South. People think I'm, I had military service, and it's like, no, like, it's just as how respectful as I am with you. I always text you, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Like, I
You
always
do.
text you that.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, that's just who I am. And so, there's not many people do that, especially
No, they
people at
don't.
my age. And so,
They're like, hey, what's up? What's up?
exactly, exactly.
But
Grown men don't even do that,
you
So,
raised yourself so well. You did that. And that, like, I don't think anyone's told you that. Like, you have raised yourself better than what I have seen other parents raise their children. especially when you put all the crap that you've had to go through and you still show up with respect for people instead of being, you give people the benefit of the doubt and be like, I'm going to respect you. I'm going to do what I can to show that I'm a respected person, and I'm going to show you who I am. And that not a lot of people will do that. You're right. They stab their toe when they're on the floor. I mean, I hate stabbing my toe, but it's not the worst thing I've gone through. But people do magnify that and be like, look, I'm a victim. And you're like, stop, like, get up and go. It's so much harder to get up and go, but it's worth it, because you're not going to sit. It's hard to sit in what you've gone through, but come on, like, if I can do it, you can do it, kind of. And that's true. Like, if you can stand up and be like, look, this is what I can find success in, other people can do that too. So I love that you shared that. Is there anything else you want to share before we move to the last question?
We could go to the third question.
Okay, awesome. If someone wanted to do what you do, keynote speaking, finding internships, getting back up on their feet, what advice would you give to them?
The main thing is open your ears. Open your ears, open your heart, and be.
Mm.
The thing is, you have to be coachable, teachable. You have to ask questions, because if you're in a classroom with 30, 40 students, out of the 30, 40 students, you have that one question you're doubtful to ask 12 other students have that same question.
True.
Continue to ask questions. And so you could ask the Rams, ask them, and they'll tell you, ask the questions, for clarification, and so whether somebody may think that's a dumb question, it really isn't, you just don't understand. So you have to ask questions. And so when it comes to being a public speaker or a public host or even a public figure like myself, you have to understand that the world is bigger than what you think it is. The world, the mission that you're on is bigger than you, bigger than what you think it is.
Absolutely.
And so when you are in these rooms and these venues and these positions, you have to carry yourself well. You have to understand that you're not only representing yourself, you're representing your last name, you're representing your family, and you're representing the mission that you're advocating for. You're representing all the other people that are fighting for that mission or a part of that mission, And so if you want to do what I do, good luck, because it's not for everybody.
No,
and
you're
when I say
right.
that, it's true, because I've had more success than people that have a career like this, and that's been 20 years into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't carry that. I don't carry that lightly, and I don't take it for granted at all. And so the thing is, yeah, be humble 99% of the time, but reward yourself with that 1%.
Absolutely.
Not often, but reward yourself with that, because it could get draining and you could get too caught up into it, what you want to do and what I want to do. And so the most important part is be present. Be present and make your intentions clear and genuine, because a lot of keynote speakers I've picked up on, they don't know. They just want to talk, and not read the room. They just want to go in, talk, and head out and get the check, And so, yeah, I've been on panel discussions and where people aren't given valuable game, and so don't read the room and don't be afraid to be yourself, because, like I said in the beginning of this interview, the thing is, I don't write shit down. I don't, and so I read the room, and if I need to use profanity, I will, but I won't use it every sentence or anything like that. Like when I'm with a couple of youth, like I just be myself, and so when I'm being myself, of course I'm gonna use a little profanity, but to an extent, and so that's just me being myself. And so when I'm in these rooms, I read the room, and when I need to use it, I use it. A lot of people are afraid, and a lot of people, become, over professional. And so when you're over professional, you come off as a dude. You come off as, you come off as the square. And so the thing is, be yourself, be genuine,
I love that.
And so, yeah. And so, I be yourself and don't be stuck up. Don't be a square. And just
be humble, but celebrate.
Exactly. Be humble and celebrate, and stuff like that.
There was a keynote speaker, and I mean, he was like world renowned. And I was listening to him speak one day, and he said the most profound thing to me that I was like, huh. But he said what he does is he shows up in normal casual clothes. He has a suit in the car and a nice jacket. So he brings different outfits. He gets there early, reads the room, and then he'll go change if he needs to. But what he does is he goes, I want to be approachable. I want to, if I'm in a business 4-suit tie, like 4-suit piece tie, whatever, I need to show up like that because that's who's in the room. But if I'm coming in where people are in jeans and sandals and I'm showing up in a 4-piece suit, I'm not reading my room. So he said that there were times that he would change. And then he would come in and like you said, speak differently. Am I in a professional environment? Am I in more of a casual environment? Do I need to just be myself? And when he said that, I kind of sat back and I was like, you know what? I agree with everything you said, because you said it. Like, so many keynote speakers come in, they get their check and they leave. And they're not like, they're just like, okay, great. And then they're gone. And you're just like, that didn't do anything for the people in the room. But when you show up as yourself, as your authentic self, and you give your advice and you are there and you're present, you even know, like, sometimes you're like, I'm going to skip this. I'm just going to not talk about this. Or I'm going to, okay, you guys are listening and I want to really hit home on this. I'm going to go into detail on this. I'm going to stay here for a second. And I don't think a lot of people can do that because they're rehearsed. And in the beginning, you said you don't show up with notes. You don't show up with a PowerPoint. You don't come in scripted. You just come in, you read the room, and then you share. And not a lot of people can do that. That's hard for people.
Yeah, it don't, like, the thing is, like, what the world renowned keynote speaker does, like, it's not for everybody, and it's not gonna work for everybody. And the thing is, it's like, especially when you're starting off, like, hey, the thing is, when you're starting off, it's going to be a little rough, and you're gonna, it's gonna take time to, it's gonna take some time to, understand what you do and what you like and what you don't like and everything. But the thing is, it's like, with my first semester of community college, like, his name's Dr. Brackett and Dr. Will Sims. They're Black men, and they would show up in the suit and tie every day. And so I was intimidated a little bit, because I'm Black and they're Black men, and they're suit and tie, so I would get a little intimidated in the beginning. So I understand that part. But the thing is like, being approachable is important, but also the thing is, a lot of people don't approach me in the beginning because they don't know who I am. Only people that approach me in the beginning of the event is people who know me. And so that's why I always have to have a key slot where I share my story. Because when I share my story, it shows people that, like, hey, I'm with you. Like, I'm right there with you, if not lower. And so the thing is, that's when, after the event, that's when people come approaching. And so the thing is, people approach me even more when I tell them that, hey, I'm gonna run for president of the United States. And that's not a marketing thing or anything. That's like legit. It's not even a fucking dream. It's a fucking goal, It's gonna happen. It's mandatory that me running for president is gonna happen. Whether I win or not, I am prepared. I am prepared, and I'm gonna do it. And at least I can say I did it. But the thing is, stuff like that is like, that's like when, like, people are gonna plan to approach me before I say that. But when I say that, it's like, oh, hey, this is gonna be our future president. All right, cool. I'm gonna come up. And so the thing is, show up in the swim and tie. Show up professional. It's cool to do that. And so I'm not knocking people who do that, because I do that. And so whether you're overdressed or not, like, who gives a damn, At least you can say you look fly. At least you can say, hey, you're approachable. And so it's all about your personality. It's all about how you speak and who you speak to. And so the thing is, a lot of people have that misconception where it's like, oh, yeah, like, don't get me wrong, it's important to talk about the approachability of people. And so it's important to talk about that. But the thing is, don't focus on that too much. Because when you focus on that too much, it's like you start sweating and get a little nervous and start stuttering and all that. And so you miss opportunity if you don't go for it. And so just go for it.
Yeah. And the thing where this guy was talking about his suit and tie versus like jeans and a sandal, it was a church he was showing up to. And so it's like, if you go to a Baptist church, most of them, they might dress very nicely, but you go to a Black church and it's required. Like, you don't show up in a pair of jeans and his sandals. Like, that's not a good thing to do.
Sounds
And
real, for sure.
that's what he said. Like, he's just like, you can't do that. You're not going to gain respect of who you're talking to. So that's where, like you're saying, like, be approachable. It doesn't matter if you're in a 4-piece suit, but just be approachable. And that's the difference between, I think, what you're doing and what other keynote speakers are doing, is that they're not approachable. And it doesn't matter what they wear. They could wear the right clothes, they could say the right things, but if they're not approachable, that you basically shot yourself in the foot, and like, you're just not helping yourself. But you're going to be the future president of the United States. We're going to push that. That is going to happen. I know you're going to run. I have a good feeling about that. I know you're doing the legwork now. What is one of the things that you're going to do in the next year to make that happen?
Just continue to, be a speaker, a public host, a public figure, public speaker. Hone in on the public figure and public speaking part. Hone in on that. Have more events. The thing is, like, I'm always booked to host events and speak at events, but the thing is, within the next year, host my own events.
Ooh.
And so hosting my own events, because I plan on, I've been working on the foundation of my nonprofit. So it's called Joseph McChain Foundation. And so that's going to be a key focal point of, showing the community, and not even just the community, but the world, who I am and what I'm doing, and the impact that I'm making. But the thing is, it's also going to help me, with my campaign when I start to run. And so within a year, within this year and next year, just host my own events. And so host my own events. Like, for example, within 2 months, next month, I'm hosting a LA Dodgers studio tour, just like I did last year, with 100 kids from Boys and Girls Club. Hosted the event, shared my story, did a bunch of activities, and then we did the tour and some lunch. I did that last year. They invited me back to do it this year with Bank of America and LA Dodgers. So, stuff like that, where hosting events like that, and, just getting my story out there, but also honing in on, hey, I'm running for president in 9 years from now, because I turned 26, in August. So, 9 more years to go. So, that's the thing that I'm going to be doing with the new year. And so by February next year, I should be launching my nonprofit.
So excited. Let us know when that's launched, because we're going to be blasting it out with you. Thank you so much for joining and sharing this. I love it. Like, I love being able to just interview people, but I love hearing your story, and then just being like, I'm in awe of you, of all the things that you've done, and the way you've raised yourself, and the way that you have accomplished huge things that I could never even fathom. Like, it's a big deal. So I'm so excited that I got a little piece of your time to be able to bring you on and to have you. This was amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. But if you want to say anything else, that's great.
So thank you.
All right. We want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Foster Greatness. We equip foster youth by connecting communities and empowering individuals on their journey. We provide workforce development, master classes, travel abroad experiences, and individual and community support for foster communities. If you're interested in learning more, please visit fostergreatness.co. Thanks for joining us.